Oops, I'm going to go ahead on and finish this up. But the other important thing that I learned outside of the fact that I needed to really heal this whole thing, that showing up for other people in a way that hurt myself was an act of love. That's not an act of love. To show up in a situation where you are allowing yourself to be compromised is not an act of love. And certainly the way my health was impacted, including the fact that, I took a downward spiral. That's all I can tell you. After that hit, it seemed like everything in my body just began to fall into ill repair. It was catastrophic. It was catastrophic, that hit. And so that's what I wanted to come on here today and share. So this is part two of the Heart Chakra series in the Chakra series. So we're talking about Heart Chakra today, and I was sharing the tail end of my dynamic experience with my own Heart Chakra when I was hit in the chest in an attempt to protect someone that I love, not realizing that the greatest act of love was to show them that I valued myself, and in valuing myself, none of us were going to be hurt on that day. That there was no amount of my being a big mama bear that was a loving act. In fact, that was an act of self-destructive behavior, and it was very egocentric, which was depleting of my heart chakra. It was not a loving person, I felt later, that showed up that day. It was an ego-based person that said, I am Big Mama on the scene and everybody's going to respond to me. And Big Mama on the scene does not equate to love. Big Mama on the scene just equates to a body that's willing to put itself in the middle of mess that does not belong to it. And that is just unnatural and is not an act of love. And so that began a journey for me in trying to unwrap for myself several things. I had to figure out intimacy, which is trust in that dynamic, and what was a familial dynamic. These were people I considered to be members of my family. I had to reevaluate the status of everyone concerned in that situation, most especially myself, but certainly the young man and his mother. I had to, and this is without blame, but I had to take a look at the relationships around me and figure out, why was this okay? All right. And so from there, I became very aware of how it is that I moved when positioning myself to say that this was an act of love or a labor of love. I'm very careful about that language because I think some of the things that we project out there and say are our labor of love or our acts of love or are us showing up in a loving way are not. They are simply our ego and our need for people pleasing showing up, and it is a very unhealthy dynamic. So again, that situation caused me to have to look at many things in my life. After that situation, my romantic relationship with the fellow I was dating at the time began to really fall into ill repair. We stayed together for about a 2-year period, but I promise you, every single day for about 2 or 3 months, all this person would say to me was, well, you willing to be around people who are willing to hurt you. I don't know if I can date a person like you. Then leave. Please just leave me alone. But I was at a place of ill repair and really reinvestigating my life. And so I had this person who I was dating showing up as a narcissist. They absolutely were, telling me that I was not valuable, telling me that the people that were in my life were not friends, family, etc. Telling me that the way in which I lived my life was not valuable to this individual, while at the same time, and I would say, okay, well, then we don't need to date. It's all good for me. I mean, no, Aquarius, peace. But this person wasn't having it. They constantly stayed on the chase and, just stayed in pursuit, would not allow the relationship to just come to a close. If I stopped texting, stopped writing, stopped interacting, they would, be in my face, show up, just stuff like that. So I had that situation going on where I had to learn about my covert narcissistic behavior in the face of dealing with someone who was overtly narcissistic. And I'll go in a little bit more in some other conversations about that relationship, or my relationships in general. I don't want to talk about just that relationship. So I was dealing with that. Then on my job, I was dealing with the fact that I had accepted a leadership position within the organization I was working for, where we were working on heart chakra related issues at the job. So we were going through a strategic planning process, and we were doing some of that bubbling up practice. And I was one of the lead staff members who was tasked with the responsibility to nurture the rest of the staff through the strategic planning process. So I was tasked with receiving information, being a safe space for people to come and share issues of concern about practice, policy, procedure, and other staff members. And so I was in this position at work dealing with issues of the heart at work. I was within that entity, working within the wellness department of that entity. So even the clientele I was working with, we were dealing with issues of the heart. I mean, I had folks coming in that were diagnosed with HIV and AIDS, other terminal diseases. I had folks who were dealing with grief and trying to find alternative healing solutions to deal with deeply embedded grief. We had people who were just in the life transition and journey from being overweight and extremely unhealthy and transitioning into a healthy plant-based lifestyle. So dealing with that in my clientele and the heavy emotional content that came with helping people to transition their life, and the responsibility I felt as a wellness agent to approach my work with a ethical practice and value. And so all of these areas, my heart was honestly under attack and under duress. And I also was having to survive in the aftermath of this physical trauma. And so that began for me the practice of trying to heal the heart chakra. The way I moved around in that practice was attempting to participate in radical forgiveness. And so I found myself able to move through the space of radical forgiveness, where I was able to forgive my parents. I was able to forgive the boyfriend in college who beat me up. I was able to forgive the former boyfriend in college who came back and sexually assaulted me. I was able to forgive my father, who, when I told him about the abuses I experienced in college, told me it was my fault. I was able to forgive the fathers of my children for their neglect and their abandonment of myself and my children. I mean, I went through it. I called up from the center. Here we go. I called up from the center of my being all of the issues, all of the experiences, all of the personalities that I felt I needed to move into a space of forgiving with, so that I could unlock the stagnation in this heart chakra. Because if it was culminating in the fact that I had not only received a blow to the chest as a wake-up call, but then internalized it as a heart attack, I needed to do some work in this area. So I was able to move through radical forgiveness until I got to one space. And that was forgiving people at work. I wasn't able to move through that as immediately. And there were a lot of things going on at that space of employment. And we'll talk about that at another time. But anyway, I just wanted to come on here and share with you. I'm obviously in a healed space. I'm doing much better. I did survive that mild angina. I do now have to be very careful though. I always describe it as like a whooshing. Like sometimes my heart now just feels like it's strained, and I can feel the strain. And it's my heart, but it feels like a pressure that's right here, right? Whenever my heart's in duress. And I, of course, get the ache in the shoulder and in the elbow, the numbness of the hands, and I have to be very careful. I do take a blood pressure medication when I'm overly stressed. I was on the medication quite regularly for a year, but when I'm overly stressed, I begin to take my blood pressure medicine, and it helps me to alleviate some of those hypertensive symptoms. I'm very careful with my diet. I'm very careful with whom I socialize with. And right now, I am single and I am not dating. That is for a specific reason. I choose to be single because I am choosing me right now. And so I just kind of wanted to come on here and share with you my experience with my heart chakra. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about what I did to heal and repair that chakra, but I can tell you that the journey through radical forgiveness was a huge instrument in my healing my heart chakra. The other thing, and remember, when we were talking about that first chakra, the heart chakra in the part 1 of this series, the heart chakra in Tarot is connected to the House of Swords, which element is air, and the element of the heart chakra is air. I am an Aquarius, which is an air sign, and specifically the water bearer. We bear out the nutrients. We bear the waters of life. And so it is in my nature, I believe, to be loving at my core. Like, as you know, many people know about Aquarians, we are the humanitarian of the zodiac. We care about people. We care about the people on this planet, and we certainly care about the people who we choose to live our life in partnership with. Whether you are people on our job, people in our neighborhood, people at our children's school, we walk with a ownership of caring. And so it is important to acknowledge the mind, body, soul connection between the heart and the mind, because what you think you love is, and who you think you love is where you present and show up in a space of love. So you've got to be careful what you allow your mind to wrap around as a loving experience, or a loving connection, a loving relationship. We have to have boundaries. I listened to another YouTuber, and so though I don't think that this particular person created this this saying, I do have to give credit where credit is due. So in listening to Cynthia G, and please check out her channel. She has a wonderful channel. She talks about, though, standards, boundaries, and expectations. I can't say I agree with everything that the young lady has to say, though I agree with a lot of what she has to say, because at the end of the day, what I believe Miss Cynthia G is talking about is self-love, right? And so if we as women, as she says, have standards, boundaries, and expectations, we can't be in a dynamic relationship that is less than what we consider ourselves to be worthy of, okay? And so what I learned in my experience, in the way that I healed my heart chakra, is I had to move through radical forgiveness. I had to forgive. I had to be at a space of being willing to forgive, because releasing in forgiveness was not an act of love towards the people that I was releasing. They had already effed me over, screwed me over, and were out of my life. They made a very willing choice to say, I don't value you, and I don't care to make it right, make it wrong, make it anything for you. It is what it is. What I had to learn is that radical forgiveness was for me. If I was holding on to people that I felt owed me some level of anything, I wasn't able to move and to grow in other relationships. And until I came to a place of confronting those embattled areas of my heart, I was going to continue to put myself in danger, like I did, jumping into that situation, because my mind, the heart ruled by the mind, my mind told me that that's what I needed to do to show up as loving and to receive love. It was not true, hence the punching of the chest, the mild angina that resulted as a punching of the chest, and the subsequent 3 years afterward, where my life was completely changed because of the impact, the hit of one situation had on my life. All right, so thank you for joining me again. This has been the Chakra series with Mama Sha, Center Your Being TV. If you would like any more information, please join me and discover me at centerofbeingdojo.com. I'm also available on Facebook, Center of Being, and on Instagram, Center of Being Dojo. I thank you so much. I encourage you to like and subscribe, part 2 or part 1, and please check out my other videos. Give me some feedback. Tell me, let's get interactive. That's why we're here. That's what this space is for. But above and beyond that, I encourage you all to have a dynamic day. Please adorn yourself in your finest display of green. Let the world know that you stand in a space of self-love, self-acceptance, and abundance. I love you, my fellow beings, and I thank you for sharing the time and the space with me today. I encourage you to have a wonderful day.